A few months ago, I made this audio amplifier with a built-in voltage booster. The extra voltage allowed it to make more power from just a single battery. A single cell like this one delivers around 3.7 volts, but the built-in booster got it up to 6.5 volts, which more or less doubled the output power. However, several people pointed out that I should have simply used two batteries instead. Connecting two cells in series for twice the voltage would have eliminated the need for a voltage booster. That was a fair point, but as it often happens, things are not as straightforward as they seem at first. So in this video, I will show you how I made this dual-cell battery charging module. I'll explain the benefits of such a design and why it's not just a matter of slapping two batteries together and calling it a day. All of my battery-powered projects so far have been designed around a single cell. This is the simplest approach. There is a large variety of easy-to-use integrated circuits made specifically for the job. You do not have to worry about voltage balancing across multiple cells, and you have the convenience of charging over USB. And if you need higher voltage, adding a voltage booster to your design could be much cheaper than including additional battery cells. But there are limits to what you can do with just one battery cell. Adding more cells in series doesn't just increase the voltage and energy capacity. It also makes it easier to design systems that deliver more power more efficiently, like in this vacuum, which uses two cells, or in this power tool battery, which is made of 3 cells in series. And you will find thousands of cells inside electric car battery packs, which can go up to 400 or 800 volts. But let's keep things simpler for now and make a charging module for just 2 cells. My old design seemed like a good starting point, with a battery holder, adjustable charging parameters, screw terminals for the output, and USB input. However, I had to find a different chip that could handle 2 battery cells, and no less importantly, I really wanted to keep the USB input for convenient charging. However, this was going to be a challenge. The reason? Voltage. Let me explain. Here I have a single 3.7 volt cell, and it is connected to my power supply for charging, positive to positive and negative to negative. However, it is not charging yet. The voltage of the supply is pretty much the same as the voltage of the battery. But as soon as I increase the voltage, we see the amps go up. The supply voltage is now higher than that of the battery. That difference in voltage creates current flow, which charges the battery. A 3.7 volt battery needs only around 4.2 volts for a full charge. But 2 cells in series need twice the voltage, 8.4 volts. A simple USB port supplies only 5 volts, which is not enough to charge them. For a while, I considered designing the charging module with a USB power delivery chip, which would request 9 volts from a compatible charger, a chip like the one I used for my breadboard power supply project, which worked fine and was super simple to use. But my priority was on wider compatibility, so I scrapped that idea and kept looking for other solutions. Eventually, I came across this chip, the MP2672A. It seemed perfect for what I had in mind. A key advantage was the integrated voltage converter, which could boost the 5 volts from the input enough to charge 2 batteries in series at up to 2 amps. It also had multiple safety features built in, such as over-voltage protection, cell balancing, and temperature monitoring. But to use this chip, I had to design a custom circuit board, so as always, I turned to my sponsor, JLCPCB. It's never been easier or more affordable to get a professional-grade circuit board manufactured and delivered to your door. For all of my projects, I turned to JLCPCB, a company with 20 years of experience making circuit boards of all varieties, including flex, aluminum, and rigid multi-layer PCBs. Thanks to JLCPCB, advanced 6-layer circuit boards are no longer a luxury. They are accessible to even hobbyists and small engineering teams, with prices starting at just $2 for small designs and $123 worth of coupons for new users. Enjoy 48-hour quick turnaround, as well as free via-in pad and nickel gold finish with JLCPCB. Follow my links below to claim your free coupons and turn your projects into reality with high-quality circuit boards from JLCPCB. And now back to the project. As usual, I designed my circuit board in easy EDA, following closely the example circuit provided in the datasheet. I included holders for the batteries, a USB-C port for the input, screw terminals on the output, and multiple pin headers for configuration. The circuit includes the 5.1 kΩ resistors required for the USB port to work with Type-C to Type-C cables and smart chargers. They are also needed to get up to 3 amps of current from the connected charger. Speaking of current, many battery charging chips let you configure it using external resistors. The resistance value determines the maximum charging current. Sometimes the maximum charging voltage can also be configured the same way. It is good to have control over these settings because different batteries have different charging specs, which you do not want to exceed. I included 3 different resistors, which give me 3 charging speed settings. I can switch between 1, 1.5 and 2 amps using these pin headers. The maximum battery charging voltage is configured in a similar way. By the way, the schematic and project files are available on my Patreon page in case you want to take a look. You will also find my previous designs there, and you can follow me there for project updates. This is what the manufactured PCB looks like. Many of the difficult to solder components such as the USB port, the inductor, and the chip itself were soldered professionally by JLCPCB. However, there was an extra fee for soldering the battery holders, so I chose to buy them separately and solder them myself. And then I realized I might have made a mistake. Previously, I've always used this type of holder. It has through-hole pins, so it's pretty easy to solder. But this time I went with these surface mount holders. I expected them to be more difficult to solder because they had much bigger terminals and I had a solid ground plane on the PCB. Fortunately, I was wrong. They stuck pretty easily, and in a couple of minutes I had both of them soldered in place. A quick safety check with the multimeter confirmed there were no short circuits. Still, I should have probably designed the PCB with spokes around the battery pads. Also, I should have made the clearance wider or skipped the ground plane altogether. I plugged in a charging cable into the USB port and the 2 LEDs lit up. This was a good sign. The red one blinking was actually an error signal, but it simply meant the batteries were not detected. Then I popped in a couple of 18650 cells and nothing happened. But I quickly figured out that the temperature monitoring feature was stopping the charging process. The chip allows me to use a thermistor to keep track of the temperature of the batteries. I did not have one to install, so I just bypassed the feature for now with a potentiometer. Right after that, the batteries started charging as expected. This was really cool. The module was taking in 5 volts and boosting them to over 8 volts to charge the batteries. The chip was getting kind of hot during the process, but it was never too hot to maintain stable operation. Now, even though the batteries can be charged at up to 2 amps, the input current goes beyond that. I measured over 3 amps and 16 watts at the input when using a good power bank and a high quality cable. With more basic cables, the current and power were slightly lower, but still hovered around 15 watts and 3 amps. This is normal. Remember that the chip has to boost the input voltage. Charging the batteries at 2 amps requires over 16 watts of power, and that has to come from somewhere. So to compensate, the input current draw at 5 volts is much higher. But I'm thinking the 2 amp charging speed could be a bit too much for this module. First of all, the USB port I chose is only rated for 3 amps. I could have picked one that can handle 5 amps, but even the best chargers and power banks are limited to 3 amps at 5 volts. So the 1.5 amp setting seemed like a safer option, balancing speed and reliability. At 1.5 amps charging, the input power hovers around 12 watts, and at 1 amp it is closer to 9 watts. You may be wondering what happens if I have a weaker charger plugged in. Well, let's find out. This power bank is rated for just 1 amp. When I connect it, we see that the module pulls only about 5 watts from the power bank. The management chip is actually smart enough to detect when the input voltage starts to drop. This tells it to pull less current so that the voltage does not collapse entirely, which is a good thing. The batteries may be charging slowly, but they are still charging, even from a much less powerful charger. Next, I connected the light bulb to the output to let the batteries drain. But when I returned, I noticed something unexpected. The battery cells were down to half a volt. That's not good. Lithium-ion batteries should not be drained so low. Typically, you do not want them to go below 2.5 volts per cell. Unfortunately, it turns out the chip I chose does not have over-discharge protection. I somehow missed that while reading the datasheet, so this one is entirely my fault. At least it can detect when the batteries are over-discharged. Right now, the module is in pre-charge mode, meaning it is charging the batteries with a low current for safety. Once their voltage gets high enough, the charging current goes back to normal. For my next test, I intentionally replaced the cells with two that were out of balance. The difference between them was about 0.2 volts. I did this to check the cell balancing feature, which is supposed to ensure that the two are at the same voltage. Without balancing, you may end up in a situation where one cell gets overcharged and the other never gets fully charged. If the charger sees only the sum of the voltages of the cells, it cannot detect if there is a mismatch. But here, the balancing feature monitors the voltage at the point between the two cells. After 30 minutes of charging, the cells were almost at the same voltage. Nice! After that, I decided to test what happens in the event of a short circuit. So I put a wire across the output terminals and a puff of magic smoke came out. The output was gone and was showing 0 volts, even though the batteries were still charging. Fortunately, I had a few spare PCBs, so I salvaged the battery holders from the damaged PCB and soldered them to a new one. And just like that, I had another module to play with. But it is disappointing to see there is no reliable short-circuit protection on the chip. I never explained why there are 3 pins for the output: ground, system, and battery positive. The B+ goes directly to the positive terminal of the battery, and ground is connected to the negative one. There is no protection here, so they must never be shorted. Meanwhile, the system pin is part of the power path management system of the chip. It still provides the same voltage as the batteries. However, watch what happens when I connect this light bulb as a load. If I connect it to the system pin, the input current goes up to power the load while also charging the batteries at full speed. But if I connect it to the battery terminals, that does not happen. The input power stays the same. So I can reliably use this module to power a device and charge the batteries at the same time. In conclusion, my first attempt at making a dual-cell battery charging module was not perfect. On the one hand, it is convenient that I'm able to charge the batteries from a USB port, and the cell balancing and power path features are great to have on such a module. On the other hand, I should have paid more attention to safety. Without over-discharge and short-circuit protection, this module feels incomplete. I should remind you that I am not an expert. I'm just learning as I go, and mistakes like these are part of the process. If you want to take a look at my project files anyway, they're over on Patreon. You can support me there to help me make more do-it-yourself projects, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to never miss any of my future videos.